Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tapping In webinar. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Today we are going to be covering accessible tourism and events and having a look at the size of the market and whether it's worth people investing in. So, let's get into it. 30-Foot Drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise the continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and to their cultures, to their elders both past, present and emerging. We'd also like to acknowledge the Department of Communities, Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives like it. Without their support, so many projects such as the Two Wise Monkeys series of workshops would never actually see the light of day, and as a community we would be so much poorer for it. This workshop is part of the Realities and Advantages of Access and Inclusion grant, awarded to 30-Foot Drop as part of the Information Linkages and Capacity Building grants of 2018 to 2019. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the information. The first thing is, unfortunately, we don't actually have the resources to monitor all of our live streams during our sessions. So, if you want to ask any questions or interact with us, please head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live to ask any questions that you have. We're also going to be covering a lot of information within this session, so please, if you can, minimise any distractions that you have. Now, if you're unable to watch the entirety of this session, that's absolutely fine, because we actually record these sessions and post them on our YouTube and Vimeo channels after we've finished. So if you want to go back and check up on anything that was mentioned, or if you want to review it or catch up, anything like that, share it with others, all of those things, it's all there. Additionally, we will also be referencing some research that has been done. All the research that's referenced, you can actually find it on the 30-Foot Drop Digital Resource Library. Okay, so head on over to www.30footdrop.com.au and have a look in there. We've got some amazing stuff in there, not just what we're covering today, but also looking a lot around Australian standards, checklists, mental health, resilience, leadership, councils. We have so much on there. Have a look, it is all really good stuff. And finally, at the end of the webinar, we've got a short survey for you guys to complete, okay? It's 6 questions, 30 seconds. It takes hardly any time and it really, really helps us. So please, please, please fill out the survey. You'll find it at the 30footdrop.com.au/live. Head down the bottom there and there is a series of links that will take you to the surveys. And this is webinar number 5. So you'll need the survey corresponding to that. So thank you very much. A quick introduction for you who don't know who I am. My name's Ben and I am the Managing Director here at 30-Foot Drop. I am also a C5 quadriplegic, okay? Hence why my hands look a little bit odd. So I am see no evil. And that's because I have a very obvious impairment, okay? It's very, very hard to come across as not being impaired when you've got wheels attached to your butt. And I am see no evil because with the information that we give you guys, you will leave here seeing no evil about disability and impairment. My co-presenter Lisa, who will be doing this evening's webinar, she is hear no evil. She has an invisible impairment, and I'm not going to ruin her story because it's amazing, okay? But with the information that she gives you, you will hear no evil about disability and impairment. Now, there's normally supposed to be 3 wise monkeys though. So, the question is, who is the third? Well, it's you guys. Hopefully with the information that you gather through our webinars, you will speak no evil about disability and impairment. So, how are we going to get you started on the path of the wise monkey? There's a lot to learn about people with impairment and their potential impact on your tourism or events business. So, first up, we're actually going to have a look at the most recent Australian research so you can understand the size of the accessible tourism market in WA. Then we're going to actually break into the segment and have a closer look at the characteristics and habits of this segment so that you fully understand. And then to finish off, we're going to have a bit of an open forum session, okay, where any questions can be asked and I'll answer anything that's put in front of me. Now, how are we going to go about doing this? Well, 30-Foot Drop, we believe in educating the community through open, honest conversations. Okay, we also like to have a little bit of fun. So, we will be bringing up some amusing anecdotes on the way through. And when I say open, honest conversation, I mean it. Okay, you guys can feel free to ask any questions that you have. Okay, none are off limits. They don't have to be about what we're talking about today. If you have any, okay, do that. Now, in order to facilitate that, okay, and also to facilitate the fact that there's very little written content on my slides, you are here to interact with us. So head to www.30footdrop.com.au and there's the live stream on there along with the chat box. Okay, use that to get in contact with us and let us know what you think. Now, before we get started into the content proper, I just want to go over some terminology to ensure that you gain a full understanding and you're not confused by how I use some of the words. So the first terminology is the difference between disability and impairment. So an impairment is an injury, illness, or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a loss or difference of physiological or psychological function. To simplify that, an impairment is your medical diagnosis. An impairment is how you medically differ from what is seen as the norm of society. So, for example, I am a C5 quadriplegic with post-traumatic stress in remission. That is how I function physiologically and psychologically different to what is seen as the norm. Okay? So, your impairment is your medical diagnosis. Now, a lot of people are using the word disability instead, but that's actually not what it means. Okay? A disability is not an impairment. A disability is the loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level. Okay? This is due to social environmental barriers. Okay? So the impairment is how you're different. The disability is how you are, or the barriers that are pushing your way. Okay? So an example of a disability for me is steps. Disable me from being able to get into a shop to spend my money. Okay? The disability is the barriers. Okay? And when I say environmental barriers, I'm not just talking about the ones found in nature. I'm talking about everything in the built human society. Okay? So the disability is often the barrier. And now to clarify it further, if you actually think about the word disability and its core word, disable. Okay? To disable something is to make something so it doesn't work anymore and so it cannot complete a task. Okay? When you disable me, you're stopping me from being able to participate. So hopefully that's made sense. The next bit of terminology that I want to go over is the difference between access and inclusion. Access and inclusion has been a hype term for a while now, okay? But people have lost focus on what the two words actually mean, okay? So the first word is access. Now, access is the one that people tend to focus on the most, okay? Because access refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, both physical and attitudinal, to the participation in the activities and functions of a community. Okay? At its core, access focuses on the physical world around us and is easily assessed with checklists and Australian standards. Access is very easy to assess, okay? Because it is something that we can physically, it's tangible, it's something that you can actually influence easily. So that's access, and so many businesses focus on that. Inclusion, on the other hand, is a psychological state of being, okay? It's the process whereby every person who wishes to can participate fully in all aspects of an activity or service the same way as everybody else, okay? So inclusion to me, okay, is knowing that when I turn up to an event, or I turn up to a meeting, or I'm asked for my opinion, that my opinion's actually mattered, that I'm going to feel like I'm part of whatever is happening, that I feel included in what is happening, and that is why it is a psychological state of being. Okay? And when I say it's the process whereby every person can fully participate, inclusion isn't just impairment specific, okay? Inclusion is a very, very wide spectrum. It includes people, when I say every person, I'm saying irrespective of age, impairment, gender, religion, sexual preference, nationality, to name a few, okay? Inclusion is where every person feels like they are part of the community, that they are worth something, okay? So hopefully that's all made sense. If it hasn't, please head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live and head to the chat box there and ask any of your questions. Okay, but for now, let's get on with the good stuff and have a look at the stats around the tourism sector in WA. Now, I've chosen to focus a lot on the southwest here in WA. It has a very rich history of tourism, and because it's my local area, I have a much deeper understanding of what goes on down here. Now, the stats show that it is very similar across all regions in WA. Okay? So, the following stats have been taken from the Southwest 2017 Visitor Fact Sheet and Economic Contribution of Tourism to WA's tourism regions. Okay? These were both produced by Tourism WA and they're found in the resource library on 30footdrop.com.au. So, what they found in these papers is the following. It's that during the 3 years from 2014 to 2016, the Southwest region had on average 2.49 million overnight visitors. Okay, so this doesn't include day trippers who come down. Okay, this is overnight visitors, 2.49 million per year. That's, considering the population of WA, that is quite a lot. Okay, every visitor stayed on average 3.6 nights. Okay, so a lot of people are coming down for long lengths of time. The direct and indirect contribution to the Southwest regional economy in 2016 to 2017 was 14%. Okay? Now, when you consider that in this region, we have got major resources projects, we've got major farming projects happening down here, 14% is huge. And that's reinforced by the fact that 1 in 5 jobs down here, 1 in 5 people who are employed as a result of tourism. Okay? So that's huge. So the tourism market here in WA is important, is very important. I mean, the 14% direct and indirect, okay, in the Coral Coast, that's higher. Okay, in the Coral Coast, from memory, it's up around 19%. And tourism is around 1 in 4 for the jobs. Okay, Perth region as well has got major tourism. You know, it's a very, very important part of our economy. So, if that's what the overall tourism market is in WA, then what is the accessible tourism market? Okay, so the following stats have come from a report called The Accessible Tourism in Victoria and Queensland, put together by Tourism Research Australia. And it was made in conjunction with each state's tourism department. Now, unfortunately, no research has been released to date that focuses on WA's accessible tourism. Okay, but this report does focus on Australia as a whole for part of it. Now, what I've done when it comes to looking at the WA segment is that I've actually extrapolated the stats because of the similarities between the Queensland tourism industry and the West Australian tourism industry. Okay? So that is how I've come to a lot of the numbers that we're about to go through. This report, like all the reports that I reference, is available on the 30-foot drop digital resource library. Okay? So, this study estimates that the size of the accessible tourism market for overnight and or day trip, okay, is 7%, or about 1.3 million people Australia-wide. Okay, So this equates to about 150,000 people in West Australia alone. Now, accessible tourism is looking at a segment of the population that require certain adjustments to service in order to be actually able to travel and to be able to go on holiday. Okay, so that's people with mobility issues, with intellectual issues. This is quite a range of people. So that's 7%. Okay, that is the people who need the adjustments. Okay, so 150,000. But this 7%, like most of us, don't actually holiday and travel alone. Okay, so there's an average party size of 2.45 for overnight travel and 2.62 for day trips. Okay, so this 7% actually quite rapidly comes out to around 17% of the population, okay, requiring accessible tourism experiences and services. So this 17% is groups like my family. Got myself, my wife, and my kid, the three of us. When we go on holiday, we need an accessible place to stay for all three of us. We need accessible experiences because I want to be part of the holiday too. Okay, so that is where these numbers come from and why it's important to keep these in mind. So once you extrapolate that out, suddenly the size of the accessible tourism market in WA is 390,000 people, okay, who require accessible tourism goods and services and experiences. Okay, now the estimate of the annual expenditure for this segment comes to approximately $8 billion Australia-wide, which equates to $916 million WA-wide and $163 million here in the southwest. Okay, that's a fair whack of money just on its own. Okay, but here's the thing. That's only the people who are currently being served. This report notes that there is actually a segment of Australians with an impairment, okay, and this includes adults who are caring for a child with an impairment, who are not currently travelling, but who would likely travel with industry improvements in accommodation, transport, and technologies. Okay? In WA, this segment is estimated at an additional 34,000 people, okay, which is approximately $225 million WA-wide. Okay, so this market, because it's not currently being served properly, has a 20% potential growth. Okay, this is a market that is not being served properly and has massive potential growth. Okay, that's the facts. That's the stats. Okay, there is money to be made here for businesses that are willing to be savvy and take the leap into making your services accessible. So, it's one thing to know that there's money to be made in a market, but in order to tap into that market, you actually need to understand the market. What are their needs? How are they similar? How are they different? And a lot of businesses seem to think that because of society's stigma around impairment, that in order to go on holiday, we're going to need a complete overhaul of everything in your business in order to use it. And on top of that, we don't earn that much money. But this is completely not true. So here are some of the needs so that you can better understand how to serve them and some of the similarities as well. Okay, so first up is that although people with impairment generally have lower incomes than average for the population as a whole, they should never be considered as low income. Okay, now this is because 1/4 of those who identify as having an impairment are actually in the top 2 income brackets. Okay, this is a disposable income of over $900 a week. Okay, 1 in 4. So we have money to spend. We just have nowhere to spend it. Okay, so that's item number 1. We have money. Of this market, okay, of this 7%, that require accessible tourism goods and services, approximately 55% of that segment have mobility issues. Okay, so this includes people who use mobility devices full time and those that have difficulty moving more than a short distance. Okay, of those in the segment who do not travel, 23% of them don't travel because it is just too stressful, and 22% is because it's just too hard. Okay, so in order to tap into this market, this potential growth, you need to make your goods and services easier and less stressful to actually tap into. And like most Australians, okay, travel by people in this segment is mostly for leisure. Okay, but it was noted that trips to friends and relatives is often preferred because knowing the layout of the accommodation helped when planning and resulted in a less stressful trip. Okay, so if a main point of stress is not knowing the layout and the configuration of the accommodation, then that's actually quite easy to alleviate. Have a map, have the information available. But that's something we'll cover tomorrow. So here are some characteristics that travellers with impairment share with the broader population that most businesses think that we don't. Okay, so the first one is the tools and decision making. Okay, now tools and decision making for people with impairment are the same as the wider population, with internet search coming in first and word of mouth coming in second. This means that you do not need a major marketing shift in order to actually attract this market to you. Okay, if your marketing program is already successful, a couple of very small tweaks may be required when you start to look at diverse marketing, but that's it. Okay, we'll look more into that tomorrow. Reconnection and unwinding are core needs of all Australian travellers, and this is just as true for travellers with impairment. Okay, now approximately 40% of travellers with impairment sought to meet these needs through either more active or more emotionally and or intellectually stimulating experiences. So what this is showing is that you don't need to completely change your products. Okay, we're after the same things. We're after those same experiences that allow us to unwind and reconnect that everybody else is after. Okay, you don't need to come up with something completely new. And this is reinforced by the next one. And that is that although travellers with impairment did slightly fewer activities, many of the experiences they participated in matched those of the broader travel population. Okay, these are things like eating out, visits to the beach, nature and cultural experiences. Okay, we want to do the same things. You don't need to create a complete new program which is completely different to everything you're doing. Okay, accessible tourism is about making tweaks to what is already in place. And overall, we tend to stay in the same types of accommodation, visit the same destinations as the broader population. Okay? Like I said, the stuff's already there, we just need to tweak it. Okay? Massive potential growth, massive amounts of money to be made out of it. Now, one common misconception that people have about the accessible tourism industry, okay, is that it's mainly catering for the grey dollar or the dollar of the older generation, but this is not true. Okay, of the people that took part in this research that I've been looking at, okay, only 14% of them were over the age of 65. Okay, there are a lot of young families who have somebody with an impairment, whether that be a child, whether that be like our family where we have one of the parents has an impairment. Okay, there is a lot out there, And we all need tourism experiences, but we're not getting them. So hopefully that has given you guys a bit more of an understanding of the stats and what the actual market is about. Okay, that is all the content that I have for today. We're about to do a little bit of an open forum session, but whilst people are putting their questions in and stuff like that, not everybody is going to hang around. For those that aren't, thank you very much for coming. Please head to the 30 Foot Drop live page and fill out a survey there. It really helps. 6 questions, 30 seconds would be absolutely amazing. For those that are hanging around, please head to the 30 Foot Drop live page as well and use the Q&A boxes there to enter any questions that you have. Okay, now as I said at the beginning, these questions can be on anything and everything. I am an open book. It doesn't have to be about accessible tourism and experiences. Okay, it can be about anything that you wish. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys until 11:30 to ask questions, and I'll come back online and answer them all for you live. Okay, so catch you in a little bit. And we're back. So it would appear that we have had no questions come through, which is absolutely fine. Look, thank you for everybody who has watched this today. I hope you've gotten something out of it, and I hope to see you for the next webinar. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I'll see you next time.